Good morning, everyone. We'll get started shortly after we let everyone into the webinar. Good morning. We're slowly letting everybody in. We'll get started in about another minute. Good morning, all. We'll get started in about 30 more seconds. Welcome to the webinar. We're glad you're here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Shannon Lean, and I am the Director of Marketing over North America at Capspire. Welcome to the RightAngle S26 webinar, What's New and What It Means for Your Business. We're thrilled to have you here today. And before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping notes. As you can see on the screen, today's session will run about 60 minutes. We do have a Q&A at the end of the session. And if you could put any of those questions in the Q&A, the chat is disabled, so please, if you can use the Q&A, we would appreciate that. And this webinar is being recorded, and we'll share the replay with you, each of you that attended afterwards. Now let's get to the good stuff. Today's topic is RightAngle S26, and we're incredibly excited to be joined by our three panelists today. Rebecca Cecchini, Vice President of Product Management at Ion Commodities. Jenny Leip, Vice President of Development at Ion Commodities, and Gwen Mahoney, Managing Director, RightAngle at Capspire. Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, good morning. Welcome, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names. But for those who don't know me, my name is Rebecca Cecchini, and I'm head of RightAngle Product Management. I've been with Ion for 14 years and around the RightAngle product for 20 years now. My team's engaged with our customers as well as internal stakeholders from the initial sales life cycle all the way through and beyond, with the responsibility of driving the product roadmap.
Thanks, Rebecca. Jenny, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Jenny Leip. I'm lead up our architecture team. I've been doing RightAngle development for about 26 years now. I work very closely with Rebecca to help drive the product roadmap and also work with both prospective and existing customers and internal stakeholders to address any technical questions and issues that they may have.
Thanks, Jenny. And Gwen, last but not least, a little bit about yourself.
I'm Gwen Mahoney. I've been at Capspire as a managing director for the last 3 years. I've got over 25 years of history with RightAngle. Prior to becoming a consultant, I actually used the software as a distribution rep. A few of the consulting hats that I've worn over the years have been on implementations and re-implementations, proofs of concept, done some health checks, and implementation analyses with a lot of other fun projects sprinkled throughout that time.
Thank you, ladies. Can everyone give them a warm welcome? I think your reactor's on, if you can hear us. Okay, our agenda today is as follows. We'll begin with our product update from Ion, followed by insights from our panelists about the new S26 offerings and getting them in place for your organization. Then we will dive right into the Q&A where the panelists will address any of your questions on the product upgrades, and market insights. Let's dive right in. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shannon. So first, I'd like to start by sharing our release train. We do continue to deliver major releases in Q1 of each year. With our newest version, S26, which was just released on February 23rd. Our releases are in mainstream support for 3 years from the GA date and will move into critical incident only for years 4 and 5. And so here you can see the status of releases that meet these conditions. And we do continue to deliver maintenance releases as needed. So those aren't, on a scheduled basis, but we will deliver those as required. So in terms of our releases, RightAngle has 3 top focus areas that drive our investments. We continuously deliver enhancements to drive efficiency and improve the user experience. So functional evolution also includes enhancements to decrease implementation time and effort and lower your total cost of ownership. So we work very closely with our services group and other stakeholders to just look at what are some of those things you're doing on each project and what makes sense to put in core, just to reduce that implementation time and effort. We've made significant investments to position RightAngle for growth in international markets, so furthering RightAngle's success in North America, and advancing our technical landscape by leveraging the latest technology. And that just, allows us to support seamless integrations as well as it optimizes performance. So before we go into the details of S26, here's a quick recap of our last few releases, or major releases. We do continue to build on our solid foundation and our commitment to usability, security, operational efficiency across the platform. So you'll see that we've delivered several valuable enhancements in all domains, but there has been significant investment in the risk area, several international focused features such as mass and Mark II intent, as well as improving implementation and maintenance of integrations. Each of these tie back to those focus themes that I mentioned on the previous slide. So now let's move into our product roundtable. I'm happy to have Jenny and Gwen join me as we share the highlights of S26, and we'll delve into their benefits and how they address your challenges. Okay, so let's start out with our functional evolution. So in inventory, inventory management is a very focus area for us. So a few key highlights in S26 are improved transparency on balance configuration modifications, as well as reports to view projected inventory balances for now transportation as well as storage deals. So let's take a closer look. So we did continue some of the work that we started in S25, where we had initially addressed some logic issues when you did make changes to balance configuration. So in S26, we introduced new audit capabilities that provide transparency to who made changes, exactly what changes were made. You can also see the impact that those changes have on inventory change. So we have a new report, the search deal balance configuration. It's a standalone report, and it's good for those users who might not have access to the deals. But you can nest the search deal balance configuration audit report underneath that, and it'll provide all the changes that have been made on a given deal. We also added search inventory change audit, and this allows you to see how those changes have occurred over time. So now you really have some really great tools to be able to see all of that detail. And as part of this work, we also enhanced the voyage workbench. So when you have actuals on your voyage details, and your voyage detail is marked complete, we use the actual quantities rather than planned quantities to calculate that balance configuration. You can also specify whether you want that to be done using mass or volume on that voyage header. So for search projected inventory balances, so when the inventory rundown in S25, we received feedback that users needed to be able to see those projected inventory balances for transportation deals. Prior to that, we only supported storage deals in those reports, as well as in the inventory workbench. But you can now retrieve both storage and transportation deals in the search projected inventory balances report. We also backported this to S25. But you can also run this report by month. So you have the option to run a daily projected inventory, or you can do monthly. And we also added position group as a new criteria option. Okay, so let's move into scheduling. So in scheduling and logistics, enhancements here aim to streamline order management as well as usability enhancements around plan fees. Okay, so let's take a look. So this was a top priority for our scheduling SIG. We enhanced the ability to modify orders. You can now modify multiple orders at one time. And you can do this by multi-selecting on order maintenance. You can also now change your transportation by selecting a movement plan from a different transportation deal. So with modifying orders, you have two options. We now have modify order delivery, which was the original option. And that one only allowed you to modify the order using the same transportation deal. But the new option is modify order. And we're also using the description, so that's also automatically populated from the transportation deal when you have a single leg movement plan. But we've also added a security operation, on this whole ability to modify orders. So for plan fees, we have search plan fees as a new standalone report. This was previously only available via navigation, but with all reports, you have criteria, you can use all the other report functions. And then another nice feature that we've added is when a plan fee is actualized, movement expenses get created. We now automatically reverse the movement expenses if the movement transaction's reversed. And this is typically because you've disconnected the movement from the order, and that movement expense no longer applies. So this, again, was also a top priority for our scheduling SIG. So now let's move into accounting. So we introduced some improvements to our payable processes with new invoice statuses and some more efficient handling of credit rebill. So this really evolved from some recent client engagement. We identified challenges with credit rebill. I know we experienced those challenges on the receivable side, but that also applies on the payable side. And so, as a result of this, we've added some statuses to try to help with this process and some automation. So we have in the payable header, in addition to the hold, feed, and paid statuses, we've also added inactive and disputed. So the inactive status, this will indicate, you can use a status if you want to indicate that a vendor invoice header isn't going to be used for the matching process. It's an end state status similar to the paid status. The invoice will remain in the system, for record keeping purposes, and it won't be deleted. You can manually set that status from the drop-down, or it'll automatically be set during our new credit and rebill process. So if it's determined, though, that you do need to go back and work with that payable invoice, you can roll it back to another status, but we did add that to the same security permission as hold. So the disputed status, this is a status that you can set to indicate that an invoice is disputed and you're expecting a full credit and rebill invoice. So as you can, see in the image, we have our original invoice amount. We are expecting a full credit for that same amount, and then the new rebill invoice. So what will happen is once you have your invoice in this disputed status, when the payable matching runs, the system is going to perform a lookup using that original invoice number. And it's going to, use that with the credit invoice in the reverse sign of that original amount. When a match is found, the status, it'll update from disputed to inactive, and then the system will also unmatch any payable details. If the vendor doesn't cross-reference that original invoice number on that credit invoice, you can manually insert it so that next time payable matching runs, it'll pick that up. All right, so let's move into reporting. We've added some really great enhancements here. So I'm going to start with deal linking. So this was something we had been asked for quite some time. Deal linking gives users the ability to create a relationship or a link to a diverse set of deals in the system. So one of the more common cases would be to show a financial contract that's hedging the position of, a particular physical position. A relationship can be established for a wide variety of scenarios. Links can be captured in two ways. The first is selecting one or more deal details on the search details report and assigning or unassigning the link group. And that's a right-click menu option. On the report, you can also create new link groups on the fly in the pop-up menu. So users really have, quite a bit of flexibility in how you want to quickly assign or unassign link groups to any set of deals. And once that link group is assigned, you can expose the link group column on any RightAngle report. So this is really, where the benefit comes in, so that you could see your activity across the system, across those deals that you've grouped together. And then another way that you can add those link groups is right from deal capture. So on the deal detail properties, you can also assign the link group there as well. And then we also extended this capability to the voyage workbench. So this provides the ability to generate a list of all the link groups related to a voyage. So you can see the vessels, cargoes, and hedges that are all tied together for that particular voyage. Okay, so in addition to that, we've added distribution lists. We've further extended the capability with distribution lists. So this was first introduced in S25 with the ability to maintain those distribution lists for sales invoices when you're distributing those. So the user group had originally asked us to lengthen the email address field on Business Associate because what they were doing is stringing multiple email addresses together in order to be able to distribute to multiple recipients. So, instead of doing that, we went ahead and solved the problem. So we added the ability to maintain distribution lists and then use them while you were distributing those sales invoices. So we have extended this functionality to templated documents. So your contract confirmations, pricing notifications, book letters, anything where you've created a templated document. And we've also added this to report distribution as well. So Jenny, would you like to talk about the remaining reporting enhancements?
Sure. Starting with report configuration, in S25, we gave you report options maintenance, which is an editable report in S25, where you can maintain a lot of those commonly updated report options. In S26, we extended that to the remainder of all of the items in that report config file that we had previously. It's in a nice maintenance window within RightAngle so that you can maintain everything there. You define the report there, you set all of the critical fields, the entities, the criteria is set in this maintenance window. It gives us a lot of flexibility in transitioning between environments, like taking a backup, moving it to your dev test, for example. It also allows us to make some of these changes without having to wait for an app pull recycle. We give you some options to import custom reports so that if you have a bunch of existing custom reports and you need to get those into the database, you have an option there to import those. And in a dev environment, when you've initially created your report and you need to promote that up to prod, we do give you an export configuration option. So it creates a nice SQL script that you can then use to promote that brand new report to prod. Next, we made some changes to report filters in S26, the primary one being the ability to determine how you want to filter dates. So in S25 and previous versions, we filtered dates based on a string. In S26, the default will be to filter by date, which means you can get some of those comparison operators like greater than, less than, between. But if you still desire the ability to filter on things such as time, you can opt to filter by text. This won't affect any existing views. You would need to change your views if you want to change to that date style. But the default on a brand new report or a base or default view, then it is default by value or by date. Rebecca, back to you.
Thank you, Jenny. And last, our partnership with Avalara. So several RightAngle customers use Avalara for tax compliance reporting. Today, ION now provides a service to our customers for efficient and accurate tax determination and calculation. So beginning with S26, we now offer a certified integration that streamlines the calculation of sales and excise taxes in one solution. This is available to be connected to any of ION's CTRMs, but we did start with RightAngle. Some additional benefits that it allows you to expand into new markets quickly without having to add staff, specialized staff or expertise. And by outsourcing those tax calculations to tax experts, you're eliminating some of that potential risk of misinterpreting the rules or using inaccurate rates. So this also reduces the effort to maintain the tax rules and rates. You can see in the graphic that all taxable activity will be transmitted to Avalara via the interface. And then Avalara will determine those jurisdictions and any applicable taxes. Exemptions are also maintained within Avalara and will be evaluated during that process. And then the resulting taxes are then fed back to RightAngle where they're available for any downstream processing, such as sales invoicing. So we're really excited to provide this offering as it had been requested for many years.
Thanks, Rebecca. I believe, Gwen, we were wanting to hear something from you on some input on what your thoughts are with these fabulous upgrades.
Rebecca, could you go back to slide 10, please?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No worries. So ION continues to add benefits to RightAngle along with tools to investigate issues and overcome challenges. What we'd like to do now is revisit some of the enhancements that are on the slide and speak to a benefit or two of each of them. So S26 brings great news for those of us who deal with balance config and its impact through RightAngle. The additional reports that have been added related to balance config provide tools which eased the investigation into BAL config and changes that were made. What was changed, who changed it, the change flow. In prior versions of RightAngle, it was difficult to follow the flow from the original balance configuration setup to the current config setup. These reports are a straightforward view into that flow and will make proving out the configurations and researching issues less challenging and time consuming. And given the importance throughout RightAngle of given the importance of balance config and its impact throughout RightAngle for accurate inventory balances and views, this is really a very welcome addition. The addition of the search projected inventories balance report in S26 gives schedulers insight into projected inventory quantities on transportation deals, which are not seen on the inventory workbench. Knowing these balances gives schedulers an understanding of their overall positions at a given location at a specific time. This new report gives a more accurate picture of overall inventory availability, which in turn enables better business decisions around supply-demand positions and product movement. The changes made to RightAngle's order modification functionality, so access to transportation deals and movement plans that are not in the original order, and the ability to multi-edit orders simplifies schedulers' work. In both cases, the changes in S26 introduce a less time-consuming way to modify existing orders. There is also less potential for introducing errors into the newly modified order. A quick example of this is prior to this S26 functionality, if a scheduler wanted to change out a transportation deal in an order, they literally had to break the order apart, break up that original order, and recreate it with the new transportation deal. Being able to bring that transportation deal into the existing order greatly streamlines this process, and it also reduces the error for introducing opportunity into the newly created order. The ad for reversing planned fee transactions when reversing movement documents is a great example of ION listening to its client base. Prior to S26, anytime a movement was reversed, these planned transaction fees had to be hunted down and reversed manually, which adds time to someone's workload. So with S26, that time is saved and financials will be more accurate. Next, let's turn to the addition of the payable statuses and the new functionality around disputed invoices. This functionality enables more accurate reflection of status and lessens the hands-on time in what is typically a pretty labor-intensive process. RightAngle's functionality around reverse and rebooks and automated and manual discarding of payables sometimes creates the need for payables analysis and cleanup. The inactive status helps with that cleanup process by providing a status that more accurately reflects payables that are no longer needed from a business standpoint. As Rebecca said, if a need is found in the future, given the security around this, that inactive status can be changed back and those payables can be utilized if needed. The addition of the disputed status and the surrounding functionality lessens the payables process time and provides more assurance that payables or that payments are actually appropriate. This functionality comes into play when an incorrect vendor invoice is received. Being able to mark the related voucher that's created based on that invoice as disputed, so applying that disputed status, while awaiting the correcting invoices from a vendor reflects what the true status of that voucher is. Having that original status auto change to back to inactive or to inactive when the correct voucher comes in is really genius. That functionality in and of itself decreases the time needed to revisit that old voucher and correct it or creating a new voucher. What makes this process even better is that it works with the auto match functionality for both manually created invoices, not just those invoices that are interfaced in through to RightAngle, which are then run through the auto match process. So great addition there. The new deals linking functionality, I think Rebecca mentioned that this is something that's been asked for a long time, something that I've heard from clients for probably since I first started using the system. This functionality lets users link individual deals together and report on that direct relationship. Again, we might link a purchase to a sale or multiple sales, linking those derivative deals back to sales or purchases. That's the door that this functionality opens. And these deals are all still included, in the strategies and portfolio functionality that exists in the system. But the S26 functionality provides a more direct connection and opens up more reporting, organizing, and analyzing options. So ION continuously improves RightAngle's reporting capabilities, which I think is great for every user experience. If you have ever gone back to previous versions and worked with reports, the improvements that you see in the filtering and grouping and sorting in all the later versions become so apparent and so appreciated. The reporting, being able to filter and group with all the new functionality is just phenomenal. And finally, that Avalara tax integration. This is no small feat, given that every single transaction that runs through RightAngle needs to be considered for tax purposes. And those are those financial taxes, the movement tax, or the financial transactions, and then movement transactions, which can create a quantity-based tax. So why this integration? So all of these calculations have been outsourced to the tax experts at Avalara. So that's one. The second one, RightAngle's tax engine is very robust and it works quite well, but there is a lot of setup to get this all put into place and ensure that taxes are calculating appropriately and when they should. You've got to set up rules, you've got tax rates, you've got licensing, and all this has to work together in a very specific and detailed manner. Additionally, as rates or the regulatory environments change, all of these, the related tax rules have to be revisited and maintained, and new rules may be required from time to time. This integration minimizes the setup and configuration in RightAngle. It's now limited to continuing to set up transaction types and groups, but also on the tax rule, what you set up is the invoice verbiage. So a lot less setup is required during an implementation or, in the addition of new rules. Once RightAngle's transactions are fed over to Avalara, it determines the tax application and it creates those related accounting transactions for the tax piece. Post that creation, those transactions are then fed back to RightAngle. And this is where RightAngle is going to look at, do these transactions need to be on an invoice? If so, that invoice is going to go grab the invoice verbiage that's on the tax roll. Do they need to be paid? Do they need to be accrued at month end because they haven't been on an invoice or they aren't paid? So RightAngle will still provide very accurate and timely information around tax transactions in compliance with, the regulatory rules that are in place. And it'll have still have the same reports that can be used through the RightAngle system, but there is a lot less front-end effort to do the implementation of these taxes.
Thanks, Gwen. Before I throw it back to Rebecca, I want to remind you that the Q&A option is open. If you have any questions about anything, please put it in the Q&A section. Thank you. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you. And before we move into our market expansion, I do want to talk about ATM because it does continue to be a priority for us. For those who aren't aware, ATM is our offering from more of the operational side. So for owners or operators of pipelines, fractionators, storage facilities. So we do continue to invest there. So we do have new features that simplify ticket integration as well as movement actualization. So for activity where the transfer of product is for a single customer, those can now be actualized with movements rather than our previous requirement to use tickets and then distribute that ticket to a single nomination, which would then create the movement. So now BOLs or inspection documents, those can be fed in as movements, and those will actualize during the appropriate auto matching process. And then customers who want to capture additional fields on the web portal. So in addition to our standard core web portal fields, those can now be done using attributes. And then we extended our integration framework that we introduced in S24 to support feeding in tickets. This framework, which supports movements, taxes, and now tickets, allows you to send JSON files. And that kind of standardizes integrations. It also protects you from changes to our core APIs. And last, the specific volume receipt distribution method. This previously allowed you to specify the daily volumes that you wanted to distribute to shippers, and you can now specify a total volume for a given time period. Okay, so let's move on to our market expansion. And we'll begin with some front office enhancements. So we are continuing to strengthen our capabilities there. This includes improvements to contract management and approval for deals that are in foreign currency and extending our embedded in-house capabilities on additional deal types. So let's take a quick look there. So in contract approval, we previously did not support currencies on manager approval limits. RightAngle will now convert contract values into a manager's approval currency. It'll determine the FX rate based on the deal's estimated payment date. And if a currency isn't specified for a given manager, the system will use either the internal BA currency or the system-based currency if that BA currency isn't available. We've also added some new columns to the contract management and approval report, and this will allow you to see the value in both the deal's native currency and the manager's currency. And our approval will now consider if the converted total value is within the manager's specified limits. So prior to S26, embedded in-house provisions, which provide an immediate and automatic transfer of risk between internal companies, books, or traders, that was limited to certain deal types. So there was great demand to extend this functionality to additional deal types. So we now support purchase and sale EFPs, blended storage, blending deals, and processing deals. We also enabled those to be captured on leases. So moving into advanced risk reporting. As I mentioned, our risk functionality is evolving to provide deeper insights and better control over your business. This includes enhancements to basis P&L reporting and analytics for more decision making. So in S25, we delivered the initial basis P&L feature, and this enables traders to componentize the prices that are driving the valuation of their deals. The mark-to-market basis details report allows users to see how the individual components are driving the price and subsequently the profit or loss against that deal. It aggregates results at the component level, and it does tie out to the existing mark-to-market report. So in S26, we made a number of enhancements, and some of those include better handling of risk periods on a curve, support for pricing and quantity adjustments. We did add some new configuration controls that allow you to enable or disable basis P&L from the front end instead of having to do that through the back end. These controls also determine how curves are broken down or rolled up on the report. We also provide support for additional deal types, including EFPs and a unique futures contracts that are trading on basis differentials. We added support for actuals over estimates on calculated curve calculations, valuations, and improved data management of that basis P&L information. And that's really to just ensure that data is purged or archived effectively. So we did already talk about Avalara integration. So at this point, Gwen, did you have anything you wanted to share on these market expansion investments?
I do. The S26 edition of the FX rate functionality for manager approval limits provides assurance that corporate policy is followed when trades are transacted in different currencies. Prior to S26, the FX wasn't taken into account, which meant that FX rates could skew the approved values. Given a particular interest rate, it was possible that the value limit could be surpassed, thus violating corporate policy. So just another way that ION is enhancing the system to make sure that client needs are met. Clients now have the ability to use embedded in-house provisions on additional deal types. So this opens the door to more modeling options for the creation of internal transactions. There are times when using these provisions provide a better transaction flow for certain business activity than the in-house rules, which also create those internal transactions. Finally, your work on ION's work on the basis P&L and S25 set the stage for the additional functionality that we're seeing in S26. So RightAngle reports will now show the individual components of a deal price. Thus, P&L can be evaluated to a different level. Being able to do this analysis on these deals at that level gives more insight into the price drivers, and that insight can be used to leverage profitability gains as well as minimize losses. So again, just more information that gives you as the client more tools to make better business decisions.
Excellent. Thank you, Gwen.
Rebecca, back to you.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Jenny to take us through some of our technology features.
Thanks, Rebecca. In S26, we did introduce some technical upgrades that have been sitting on our backlog for a little while. One is AutoFac, which is our IOC container for dependency injection, which helps with maintainability of code, quality of code, etc. Dapper is our OEM, which we use to persist data back to the database. Upgrading that provided some performance enhancements, as well as getting us on the latest code and getting us ready for the .NET upgrade, which will be happening soon. We also upgraded DevExpress. DevExpress did come with some security enhancements in it, so look forward to those. ATM. For ATM, we did upgrade Kendo and Bootstrap, and that's specific to the ATM web portal. Those are UI controls that we use to display things like the grids and just general web overview, web design. Microsoft.data.SQL client. So we upgraded the way we connect to Microsoft SQL Server for our database. We upgraded that to Microsoft.data.SQL client, which allows our customers to take advantage of the newer SQL enhancements in SQL Server, as well as providing more secure connections to the database. Every release, we replace outdated and obsolete controls with DevExpress to improve performance and usability. And then we also made several security enhancements in S26. We did prevent some critical core code from being overridden and removed obsolete components. We finally rounded out our security by internal BA. So every report that can ultimately get back to a deal or back to an internal BA has the option of being secured by internal BA. And that is throughout the system, going from front office to back office, including aviation as well as ATM. In addition to adding that to the reports themselves, we also added that to report distribution. So whether this is being scheduled through the wizard from an end user scheduling a report to be distributed, or if someone is setting up a task in Task Scheduler, the internal BA is set at that time. So regardless of criteria, those transactions are appropriately filtered so the wrong people aren't seeing the wrong things. Finally, with Microsoft Exchange deprecating basic authentication to their Exchange server, we did enable Microsoft Graph API for those of our cloud customers to connect to Exchange using the Microsoft Graph API. Back to you, Rebecca.
Gwen, I believe you're going to take us through the CapSpire and ION partnership advantage.
I am. Can you advance to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Okay. So CapSpire and ION have been trusted partners for 17 years now. Time's turned professional and personal relationships into this long-standing partnership, and we have over 100 joint projects across the ION suite. Between the two organizations, we have RightAngle and industry subject matter experts who work together to ensure that solutions are tailored to the best fit for your business needs as our clients. Our organizations are aligned top to bottom and across levels, expertise, and functionality. This trusted collaboration, mutual respect, and rapid responsiveness help contribute to your success. And next slide. So is it time for S26 and how can we help you? This S26 release comes with a lot of opportunities, and opportunities always raise questions. Do you upgrade or upgrade and add additional functionality? Is it time to consider re-implementing RightAngle? Do you want to prove out how RightAngle will handle a specific part of your business, a line of business, or specific functionality within the system and how it could impact your business? The questions on this current slide are examples of questions to ask at this point in your business and RightAngle evolution, especially with this new release. I think it came out on the 23rd of February. Great time to start asking these questions. Using our health check process, we can assess together where you are today, where you want to be, and what it will take to get you there. We can help you determine the advantages and the disadvantages that each of these opportunities holds for you. and we can help you make a well-informed, solid decision about where you want to go in the future. So, Shannon, back
Thanks,
to you.
Gwen. Wow, ladies, you provided a lot of information, great information. We do have quite a few questions. We have about 10 minutes left, so we will try to get to all of them. The first question I have is for Rebecca. What are the top reasons to upgrade to S26?
Oh, okay. There's a couple that I can think of. So first, I would say, just really being on a mainstream supported version. By being on a mainstream version, you've got all the fixes that have been delivered. You get to take advantage of some of those new enhancements as we've kind of taken you through today's presentation. We're delivering lots of new functionality, improved reporting. We're listening to you, and we're adding some of those features in that you can adopt. Second, I would say, being on the latest technical versions of the software, that'll always handle any security vulnerabilities around the application. So that's always an important thing to always make sure we're on the latest technical version of those third-party softwares. And those would include things like DevExpress, Dapper, AutoFac. And then I would say the automation. So, reducing some of the manual efforts that you might be performing today. And, we showed you a few examples of that today. And that's just, it's going to save time and make your processes more efficient. And then, what are some of the things we've delivered that you may have had to customize in the past? You can replace those customizations. This will lower your, maintenance of those customizations and, just as you adopt those versions, those are things you want to consider as you're upgrading.
Thank you, Rebecca. The next question is for Gwen. What are your thoughts based on what you're hearing from customers?
So the consistency across clients they're always looking for better, smarter, faster, accurate information. So we live in a very fast-paced world where the need for decisions and solutions come at us constantly. Our clients have a need to have quick access to reliable, spot-on data to help support decisions and solutions to challenges as they arise. So RightAngle provides that data, and the continuing efforts to make access to it quicker and more reliable are obvious, from the advances that have been made in S26. Changes to the inventory functionality place more reliance on accuracy of quantities through the balance config, and the projected inventory reports. The payables changes increase visibility into accurate payable balances. The Avalara integration lessens the RightAngle maintenance while also ensuring that taxes are handled accurately. That basis P&L now provides more knowledge around the components into pricing. Each of these changes in their own way enhance a client's ability to make decisions and resolve challenges with more timely and accurate information.
Thank you, Gwen. All right, it looks like I have a question for Rebecca. What are your thoughts on how this upgrade can help future-proof companies given the rapidly evolving energy trading landscape?
Okay. With everything that's even happening right now, I think that's a really good example. The market can change rapidly. We have supply disruptions. So being able to evolve and respond to those, I think is, the most important. And so, by continuing to be on, supported versions and with some of the newest functionality, we're providing, flexibility and tools to help you react in those situations. So, things like the modifying orders, that really enables change quickly and more efficiently. Avalara integration. So if you do need to move into new markets, you can quickly do that, knowing that, you don't need expertise. You can appropriately handle some of those, regulatory requirements. So I think those are, really what's going to help, take you through times like this. because they're happening and I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. Jenny, what about you? Can someone use the tax integration in S25?
So the core Avalara integration is only available in S26. However, in S25, we did extend our integration framework to include taxes as a preparation for this integration with Avalara. So someone can create their own custom integration to a third-party tax supplier, whether that be Avalara or iGen, et cetera, in S25 to do their tax determination outside of the system to feed those tax transactions in.
Thank you, Jenny. I have a question in the Q&A. Could you briefly describe ATM a little more? What is the use case and who are typical customers? Rebecca, did you want to take that?
I can take that for sure. Yeah, so ATM, it was a new offering that we delivered in S14. And so this is from the operational perspective. So if you own or operate pipelines, you have shippers on those pipelines that are sending you nominations, and you're having to handle all of those transactions and have the tickets that are coming in. You might own a storage facility, and you have customers that have storage and they're doing product transfer orders between each other. So those are the typical use cases. We also support fractionators. So anyone who's really having to maintain third-party volumes. You might also have a marketing end of your company who is also doing activity in your assets. So they would also be viewed as a shipper or a customer on those assets. So you can maintain all of this information. It was built on top of, RightAngle. So you can leverage a lot of the same functionality that RightAngle offers. But we did create some new entities in order to support this. So we have a new entity called an asset, and that's where you define those physical assets that you own or operate. We have nomination as a new entity. So those nominations are typically sent in the month prior to movement. And then once they start moving, you'll start receiving tickets. And now we also support feeding in movements to actualize those nominations. So it's a very very evolving solution. As I mentioned, it was introduced in S14, and we continue to invest in that offering.
Great. We have about 3 more minutes for 3 questions. So question in the chat for the link groups, my mind went to moving away from granular strategies. Are link groups available to everyone to create? I'm thinking about a long list to scroll.
Jenny, do you want to take that one? I believe we added security to who can create link groups.
That is correct. It is not meant for a replacement for strategies. It is really meant to do more granular linking of deals. And it is secured who can actually create those linked groups. And you wouldn't necessarily have to scroll through the items when you're looking for your link group, because they could expand, and we do have a maintenance window for it, so you can remove link groups if necessary, but it does use the type ahead feature so that you can type in the name if you know specifically which link group you're looking for.
All right, and Jenny, I have another question for you. Is the modify order functionality able to be used with the Voyage workbench, or is it only for the scheduling workbench?
Good question. It is only available for non-Voyage orders, so you can't use it in the Voyage workbench. You can use it in the scheduling workbench, and you can also use it in the standalone modify orders, so order maintenance report. But it cannot be used with Voyage orders.
All right, and the last question I have in the chat is workflow still supported in S26, and if not, what is the alternative?
In S26, we still have the same support for workflow as we have in S25. So we don't anticipate that going away quite yet.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of our webinar. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We will have this recording ready for you and distribute it out via email to those that attended, hopefully by Friday. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. And we thank you for taking the morning with us. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.